Good afternoon, Divas. Today I want to show you how I did a technique that Michelle Zindorf has done many times. She actually has a video on her, not a video, but she has written instructions on her website on how to do this particular technique. She normally uses a brayer for all of her things like this, but this one's called direct to paper. And what it means is we're going to actually use the stamp pad and let the stamp pad work like a brush, so to speak. So I'm going to just show you that technique of how she did that, because her instructions are written and I know a lot of you have to have a little bit of visual help. So I'm just going to put a little bit of dado on the back of my paper, and I'm not going to hold it straight like this. I'm going to kind of turn it so that I can hold my stamp pad at an angle so I can see what I'm doing. And you're going to use several different ink pads today. So the first one we want to start with is So Saffron, and you want to check your ink pad, make sure that it does have some good, has ink in it, it's nice and damp, because when it starts to dry out, the edges will kind of raise up. You can see mine's kind of warped a little bit, it's sunken in the middle, but yet it's raised up on the edges. So I want to try to find the best spot to use, and at this end looks the flattest, so I'm going to use it this way. And all you're going to do is I kind of touch the edge first. I don't like sit it down flat off of the paper that I want to put it on, and this is just a 4x4 square Whisper White. You have to use Whisper White because it needs to be something that's slick. Regular cardstock that you buy at Hobby Lobby or Michael's doesn't have this slick finish like Stampin' Up's Whisper White. And I'm going to go about 2/3 down the page, and I'm just going to take the stamp pad and I'm just going to swipe it across like that. Okay, and then you're going to take Pool Party, and I'm just going to turn it around so that I can see what I'm doing, to try to get it as close to this line as I can. And once again, I'm going to see which end of my pad, this one looks the best. Press that down so it'll stay put. And you're just going to go right up next to the yellow and do the same thing again, just swipe it across. And depending on how hard you press it down, that makes a difference in how much ink comes off. I'm going to actually put a little bit more right there. Okay? And just make sure you close your ink pads up, because they will dry out if you're, well, especially if you're down here in the south where I am, which is nice and hot all the time. You have to have the air conditioner on. Okay, so that's our piece. Okay, and now what we want to do is we're going to take a Post-it note. You will need a Post-it note for this project, and I'm just going to put it right up here, about 1/8 of an inch down on the Pool Party part, just like that. And I'm going to take some Marina Mist, and I'm going to use a dauber. I'll hold it at an angle again so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to dab it as close to that yellow as I can get. I really want it just mostly in that crack. If you don't feel comfortable doing it that way, you can actually take another Post-it and just kind of put it on the yellow so that you can kind of dab willy-nilly if you want to. If you don't want to have to try to be careful, that's just completely up to you. This is just to kind of give like the distance water part right here to give this a distinct line. And we're using a So Saffron, Pool Party, Early Espresso, Always Artichoke, Old Olive, and Marina Mist. I think she even used some Baja Breeze, which I will get in a minute. Okay. So there is that. You see how that looks? It kind of has a little water line. I'm going to leave this Post-it there. I'm going to take a sponge now, and I'm going to take some Baja Breeze. And I'm going to use a sponge, and I'm going to kind of squish the sponge up small like this. I don't want to use a dauber because I don't want the lines to be really smooth. I want them to be more like a bush. And I'm just going to daub in this corner. This is what I'm trying to do, is this part right here. And you want to kind of hold your sponge tightly, and we're just making a heel in the distance. Okay, like so. And then I'm going to use a little Old Olive And new sponge. Once again, I'm going to squinch it up really tight like that. And I'm just going to make another layer. This will give you some variation of the colors of green off in the distance. Okay. All right. Well, I still need that. Let's leave that open. Okay, I'm going to peel off my Post-it. Okay, so you can kind of see how that looks in the distance. Okay, I'm going to take the old olive, and now I'm going to do this part down here, and I'm just going to sponge all the way across with the old olive, kind of go up in a little hump right here. This piece is going to be trimmed to 3.5 square. Just a little hump there, like so. Okay, now we're going to put some artichoke on top of that. New sponge. And I'm going to just tighten it up again, same way. And I'm just going to put another layer of color on top of that. Okay, and then I'm going to use some espresso. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the espresso, once again, new sponge, and I'm going to dab it just a little bit because I don't want it too dark. But this corner I want darker, so I'm going to put more over here than across the bottom. Then I'm going to take it and hold my piece up, and I want to put it all along this edge, so this edge is very dark. You can use a dauber to do this edge part so that you can get it nice and dark. I'm just going to use my sponge since I already have it dirty. We'll rub it along the edge like this. So I want a definite dark edge right there. So now you can see my 3 colors. I'm going to take just a teeny bit of this, make my sponge real small, and I'm just going to dab a little bit up here in this corner. Like that. So that I have some real darkness on top of that. This down here is very dark. My water is very blue. And then my yellow sunset. Okay, and once that dries, you're going to need your thingamajig, stamp-a-majig, I guess as they call it. And because you're going to need to line up your image to make sure that you have it straight. Now you can, if you have My Digital Studio, you can do this process, let it dry for about 2 hours, then you can stick it in your inkjet printer and print that image on there if you want to. I have done that also. But you need to make sure your paper is completely dry so it won't stick in your printer. It takes about 2 hours. Make sure you get the sticky off the back before you try to stick it in your printer. Okay, I'm going to put that back down. I'm going to use my Stamp-a-Majig, and I'm going to use the Serene Silhouettes, which is I love this stamp set. I've already stamped a permanent image on a piece of plastic, or just some plastic from, that you save from the kitchen, from something you may buy that has a plastic cover. And I go ahead and cut those, stamp it with Stays On, and just keep it in the box with my stamp sets. Now this is the new wooden stamp sets that come in these great boxes. I have converted I bought a bunch of boxes. I have used the insert that Stampin' Up! Has on their website for you to make your own covers. And I've converted all of my, I don't have as many as a lot of people do. I only have about 30 wooden stamp sets. But converting them into these boxes has made it go from 2 shelves in my cabinet to 1 shelf in my cabinet, which I can put them in there. They can be lined up and alphabetized. Oh, it's just wonderful. I love it. So I put my little Stamp-a-Majig piece in the box with the stamp, and I want my little sign, I'm going to use this tree again. I'm going to put it so that it's on this mound right here. So I want to kind of make it leaning toward the water. So it's a little like that. I am going to use Stays On instead of the Stampin' Up! Black. You can just use the Stampin' Up! Permanent Black if you want to, but I'm going to use the Stays On just because it dries just a little bit faster than the other. And this is just Stays On Jet Black. It's also in the catalog. And if you want to, you can hold the stamp set up and put your ink up against it so you can see that you're getting ink on the stamp. Sometimes these Stays On pads, I don't know if you noticed, they're sort of like this, the old Stampin' Up! Pads. They kind of get a little bit warped in the middle because the ink kind of dries out in the middle first. Or, dries out in the edges first, so the edges start to curl up. So you want to make sure you've got good coverage. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I'm stamping this on a plastic table, which is not recommended, but we'll see how good it does today. I usually put it on a piece of tile to make it nice and firm, which I just keep a piece of tile here beside my desk, but I didn't do that today. Okay. Line that up with your Stamp-A-Majig, and if you've not ever used a Stamp-A-Majig before, it comes with a little piece of plastic. The Stampin' Up! One, which I got mine before Stampin' Up! Had it, is black. And you just take it, you take your little square, you stamp your image on it, lined up with the corner, and then when you're ready to use it, you just take your piece of plastic, you line it up the way you want it, then your stamp will go right up next to the corner. It's a very simple process. When you order one from Stamp-A-Majig, from Stampin' Up!, the Stamp-A-Majig has instructions that come, printed instructions that come with it. Plus, there's a lot of tutorials out there on YouTube. Okay, so that looks like that did really well. I'm going to let it dry for just a second. Okay, that looks good. Now, I want to go back with my early espresso and my early espresso sponge squished up tightly. And I just want to stamp right in here in this area. See where it's black? It makes it kind of stand out too much. Michelle used black, I believe, to fill that in, but I'm not a real black ink user. I prefer the espresso. It has a little softer touch. And I'm just going to stamp that right in at the base of that a little more. Okay. So that's our image. And that looks good to me. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to trim it down to 3.5 by 3.5. So I'm trimming a little bit off of each side. You can trim it before you put your tree in if you want to. You see I cut off some of my heel there. And I'm going to leave most of the bottom and just cut it from the top, since I got my bottom the way I like it with the dark edge. So my piece now is trimmed to 3.5 by 3.5. This gets mounted to your piece of Always Artichoke. Okay, so there's my matting. And then I'm just going to take that and trim that with my trimmer. Okay, so there it is, trimmed with a nice border. Okay, that's going to get mounted. The piece of cardstock base is black. So we tied in the black color. This is Baja Breeze. It's just a full mat on the front. This is Old Olive that's been embossed with an argyle folder. I have a piece of Always Artichoke denim ribbon. If you bought some of that on clearance and said, oh gosh, now what can I do with it? This is a card you can make. I think this card's very masculine. Make a great birthday card for a guy. I put in 3 little trinkets from the trinket pack, the little ones that looks like buttons, out of the pewter color. I used the photo corner punch and made some Baja Breeze corner punches to go under the matted piece. This is just from my digital studio, the happy birthday. I believe it's from the Sentiments. I can't think of the name of it right now. Wooden stamp set, an old wooden stamp set, but it's in. It comes as a standard stamp set in when you buy my digital studio now, the $79 version. So that's the card. Very simple. It looks very elegant, like you really did a lot of work to get it this way, but it really was not that difficult. Hope you enjoy.